In this episode of The Design Tourist, I travel to the mountain towns of northern Italy in the company of an extended Italian family that has cultivated the land, community, and culture here for centuries. From villages in the northern Italian Alps to the hometown of Juventus soccer team and the popular tourist destinations of Venice, Milan, and Rome, we're going to explore Italy's hidden gems and mainstream attractions. I fly into Venice and rent a car and head north to explore the towns of Bassano del Grappa and Asiago. Bassano del Grappa is about a 40-mile drive north of Venice, and it has a population of approximately 43,000 residents. The city resides at the base of Mount Grappa. It's picturesque, peaceful. Bassano del Grappa invites you to drink in the culture, literally. It's known as the birthplace of Grappa, a liquor distilled from the byproducts of winemaking. One of my first stops in Bassano del Grappa is the Poli Grappa Museum, founded by one of the original families that distills grappa. Now, for those of you who are uninitiated to the alcoholic beverage, it's a distillation of pomace, which is the byproduct of grapes and the winemaking process. It's really the equivalent of Italian moonshine, and it comes in many flavors. Grappa production began in the region in the late 1800s with two families, the Polis and the Nardinis, opening distilleries. The alcoholic drink is emblematic of Italy's circular economy, a zero-waste ethos in its farming, cultivation, and livestock practices. The antique copper pot at the entrance is one of only a few left in Italy. Inside, exhibits tell the story of grappa production. You can smell the different grappa scents and view a collection of more than 1,500 small grappa bottles from 323 different distilleries. Grappa comes in a variety of flavors, everything from prunes to eggs, and you can sample many of its iterations at the Poli Museum store and tasting room. It serves up samples in tulip-shaped glasses. That's the ideal way to savor the alcoholic beverage. Bassano del Grappa is breathtaking, surrounded by mountains, along the banks of the Brenta River, and populated with charming architecture. The city's scenery is a muse to many, packed with plenty of photo ops. The prime attraction is the Old Bridge, known as the Bridge of the Alpine Troops, in honor of those who in 1948 helped repair the bridge after it was damaged during World War II. The covered bridge is a town landmark and a tourist draw, offering sweeping views. A walk along the medieval wall, which dates back to 1461, reveals other town landmarks, including the clock tower and the Iron Bridge. From Bassano del Grappa, I head about 20 miles northeast, winding up the Dolomites Mountains along the famous Prosecco Road. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, known for its steep, hilly terrain and its patchwork of terraced vineyards growing Prosecco grapes. Prosecco Road is a 25-mile paved route that twists and turns through the mountains between the towns of Conliano and Valdobbiadene. Winemakers in the region have been making sparkling wine since 1876, when Italy's first school of oenology opened in Conegliano. Since that time, winemakers have mastered the region's rugged terrain to cultivate world-class Proseccos from the region's many microclimates. Growing and harvesting the grapes demands hard physical labor. Wine growers have to hand-pick the grapes, navigating slopey terrain. It's a labor-intensive process, earning the region a UNESCO World Heritage Site designation. My first stop is the Casalina Winery, atop a hill in the heart of the Valdobbiadene DOCG area, overlooking a rolling mosaic of steep, sloping vineyards. The Casalina family villa welcomes visitors with a tasting room and a shop. The winery offers Prosecco tastings outdoors, overlooking the picturesque views. Vineyards in the Conegliano Valdobbiadene wine region produce Prosecco according to strict standards noted by the designation DOCG, Denomination of Origin Controlled and Guaranteed. The region's light-bodied, crisp, sparkling wine is popular for its affordability and mixability as the primary ingredient in the Aperol Spritz. That's the bubbly, pinkish-orange concoction that's Italy's favorite alcoholic beverage, a mix of Prosecco and the bitter Aperol or Campari. The pinnacle of Prosecco comes from Cartizze, a small hill in the municipality of Valdobbiadene, known as Prosecco's birthplace. Cartizze is a best-in-class Italian sparkling wine and a wine subzone of approximately 250 acres with about 140 wine growers. To meet some of the winemakers of Cartizze, I visited Garbara Vineyards. It's a fifth-generation sparkling winemaker specializing in Cartizze Prosecco. Owner Mirko Grotto explains that the Cartizze sub-area, where Garbara resides, has ideal conditions to produce the highest quality Prosecco. The Garbara Cartizze I tasted had 0 sugar. That evening, I head back to the town of Conco, which lies equidistant between Bassano del Grappa and Valdobbiadene, to Stella, Alpina, the bed and breakfast inn that serves as my home base while exploring the mountain communities of northeastern Italy. Stella Alpina is adorable. It overlooks the surrounding mountains and valleys, and it's the ideal location for exploring the area. Each morning, the inn's owner cooks us breakfast. It's complete with pastries and dishes made with local ingredients. Next, we travel up the mountain to the town of Asiago, famous for its cheese of the same name. The town of Asiago has been producing cheese for over 1,000 years. One of the original cheesemakers is the Pinar Dairy, where I'm headed to sample their award-winning cheeses. Asiago is a cow's milk cheese produced around the alpine area of the Asiago Plateau. Pinar has a reputation for producing authentic Asiago cheese. You know you're getting the real deal if the cheese has the label Asiago DOP, signifying that the cheese has been approved by the Consortium for the Protection of Asiago Cheese, which represents more than 40 different Asiago cheesemakers. Pinar Dairy began operations in 1927 and makes different age varieties of Asiago, ranging from soft, smooth, and fresh to hard, crumbly, and salty. Cheesemakers originally used sheep's milk from roughly the 10th to the 15th centuries because sheep raising dominated the region's green pastures in the Asiago Plateau. Now today, they produce Asiago cheese with cow's milk. Next, we head to Turin, home of the Juventus soccer team. Turin is Italy's 4th largest city, nestled in the Piedmont, a region celebrated for its food and wine. We traveled to Turin to see Juventus play football, or as we say in the States, soccer, at Allianz Stadium. It's an iconic landmark and a cultural treasure. The Allianz Stadium is home base for the Juventus Football Club, Italy's oldest football team, nicknamed the Old Lady, and Juve for shorthand. Allianz Stadium offers tours which I highly recommend so you can appreciate the architectural and engineering talent that went into creating this sports and entertainment venue. The stadium opened on September 8, 2011. The architecture and technology are fascinating to see up close. An LED system of nearly 400 projectors focused on the pitch gives the stadium a concert-like vibe with light shows and music throughout the game. Stadium seats double as art installations when viewed from a distance as graphic images come into focus. The stadium's 41,507 seats range from basic and functional to leather-clad seating with embedded TV screens and premium seats in the Legends Club with dining and drink service. Although amenities vary based on the ticket price point, all seats offer clear views of the field with no barrier dividing fans from the pitch. We'll return that night to attend a Juventus game for the full fan and sensory experience in the stadium. To learn more about the history of Italy's oldest football team, we head to the Juventus Museum. The museum resides next to the stadium and showcases more than a century of Juventus team memorabilia. Multimedia exhibits tell the story of the Agnelli family, owner of Juventus, with the distinction of having the longest-lasting ownership of any professional sporting franchise in the world. That evening, before I head to the Juventus game, I stop in the club's megastore to shop for a Juventus sweatshirt. Here, you can purchase everything you need to be kitted out as a Juventus fan, from socks to scarves, hats to hoodies. Attending a Juventus game feels like a mashup of celebrity red carpet, rock concert, and sporting event. Juventus players arrive to cheering fans and flashing cameras as they make their way into the stadium, mixed with a rock concert vibe and amped up energy from the fans in the stands. It is total sensory overload from the lights, the music, and the multimedia experiences. For the uninitiated, Juventus is one of the most popular and successful football clubs on the planet, winning a host of domestic, European, and international honors and legions of fans across the globe. Turin was the pinnacle of Italian auto production, once home to a large Fiat factory. The National Auto Museum chronicles the city's cultural and historic ties to car production. Turin also has a culinary claim to fame as the birthplace of the widely popular Eataly, a restaurant, bar, and store that's part gastronomical attraction and experience. Next, we visit Milan in northern Italy to hit the highlights of this stylish city. I visit the Galleria Vittorio in Milan, a glass-domed shopping center packed with people. My guess, mostly tourists. However, it is an attraction worth battling the crowds to experience the promenade populated with designer shops and influencers, posing for pictures everywhere with selfie sticks. The real charm here is stopping in at one of the cafes to people watch, which is what I did, and that's where it's decision time. Aperol or Campari with my spritz. My taste buds put me in the Campari camp because I like the bitter kick to it. Aperol makes for a sweeter spritz. Next, on to the La Scala Opera House, a fascinating museum chronicling the premier opera venue's long history with some of the world's most celebrated opera singers who performed on the hollow stage, as well as costumes and other effects from various opera productions. While here in Milan, definitely a must-see is Leonardo da Vinci's Last Supper painting. So we're going to head inside. We've got about 15 minutes to see the painting. Now, the last restoration started in 1977 and finished up some 20 years later in the 1990s. Leonardo da Vinci painted the Last Supper on the north wall of the Santa Maria del Grazie, a church and Dominican convent, also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. He started the famous painting in 1494, and it took him 4 years to finish it. During World War II, The convent saved the Last Supper painting by covering the wall in sandbags and scaffolding, protecting it from the bombing of 1943 that turned much of the church to rubble. You can take photos of the Last Supper, but you will have to elbow your way up through the throngs of visitors. On our walk around the historic core of Milan, we stopped by the Milan Castle, built in 1368 by the Lord of Milan during the time of the Visconti rule. There isn't much to see inside, but a walk around the grounds rewards you with a castle that survived various battles and rulers and was nearly lost to history with the unification of Italy until restoration efforts began in the late 19th century to preserve the fortification. In the evening, I take a walk along the waterway for more people watching, the locals who hang out on the banks as the sun sets. Up next, we head to the Eternal City for a new perspective on age-old attractions. I've been to Rome several times, but there's always an opportunity to enjoy the Eternal City from a new perspective. This is a city known for its tourist crowds, so I recommend booking private tours that skip the long lines for admission. I stayed in an Airbnb walking distance to some of the city's best-known cultural landmarks and parks, including the Trevi Fountain, Villa Medici, and the Spanish Steps. Now, I've visited the Colosseum several times over the years, but on this visit, I went underground to tour the bowels of the amphitheater. It's an engineering marvel. Underneath the arena floor, I retraced the footsteps of gladiators through a maze of corridors and compartments that once held animals. There was a stream of water that ran underground in this world of slave workers who put on the show to the bloodthirsty crowds cheering above. I also learned some fascinating factoids. Did you know the arena was capable of Las Vegas caliber theatrics, special effects such as flooding the floor for ship battle shows? After we toured the below-ground inner workings of the Colosseum, we emerged above ground for a sweeping view and to learn more about the social hierarchy of the seating, how the nosebleed section was designated for the plebeians, the commoners who had to walk dozens of flights of stairs to reach their seating. That night, we returned nearby for a different view of the Colosseum, a glowing earthbound ring against the night sky, illuminated in a wash of colors. We admire the scene as we dine at a neighboring restaurant called Aroma, overlooking the Colosseum with a glass atrium. The next day, I take a private guided tour of the Vatican. We arrive and we're able to enter before the crowds and general admission. Again, paying for private tours that let you skip the line is worth every penny. I cannot say it enough. Even so, the crowds at the Vatican were smothering. Too many people to get a good look at any of the art and sculptures. However, if you've never been to Rome, a tour of the Vatican is a must-do at least once. I say goodbye to Rome, checking off my list of must-see attractions the Eternal City is famous for. The Rome of history books and tour guides, from the Trevi Fountain to the Pantheon, all very crowded, but worth a visit. Just set your expectations to have patience. Up next, I head to Venice for a night and a day of sightseeing. I spent 24 hours in Venice before I departed on my flight home. To get to the historical center, I took a bus to the Piazza Roma to catch the water bus called the Vaporetto No. 1 that runs along the Grand Canal to St. Mark's Square. You can get a tourist ticket that's good for unlimited bus and water taxi rides for a 24-hour time period for an affordable price. St. Mark's Square lies in the heart of Venice, and it's one of the most photographed attractions in the world. The square is defined by arcades on 3 sides and St. Mark's Church on the eastern end. You can spend the whole day in this area visiting St. Mark's Church, the Doge's Palace, museums, and you can go to the top of the bell tower, which features spectacular views of Venice and its lagoon. 4 bridges cross the Grand Canal. The most photographed is the Rialto Bridge. It's an Instagrammable backdrop that captures quintessential Venice with sweeping views of the Grand Canal populated with gondolas. From St. Mark's Square, the Rialto Bridge is about a 15-minute walk, and it's worth soaking up the storybook setting. Like Rome, Venice is full of tourists, and much of the shopping around St. Mark's Square offers your typical vacation souvenirs, a lot of the shops selling similar merchandise. Now, if you have time, I recommend a visit to the Murano glass factory on the nearby island. You can hit the highlights of Venice in a day: the gondola rides, all the iconic photo ops, the dining, and the shopping. And so I say goodbye to Italy, a trip mixed with authentic experiences, visiting small mountain villages paired with popular attractions in major cities. There are many different sides to this single country, a rich tapestry of distinct cultures, craft, and cuisine, depending on where you travel, which is why I intend to return to Italy again and again. Until the Design Tourist travels again, stay curious and stay inspired.